And welcome back to Zanpakuto Theory video. And today we will be looking at the former lieutenant of the 12th Division and current visor, Hiyrori. Oh god, how do you pronounce her last? I never actually had to pronounce her last name because I never remembered it. Sarugaki, and her Zanpakuto, Kubikiri Orochi. And what exactly is its theoretical Shikai ability? Well, theoretical. What in theory is its Shikai ability? And by that extension, its Bankai ability. So, to understand a Zanpakuto, you gotta actually understand their user to some degree. Because again, their Zanpakuto is you. It's a reflection of you. And Hiyrori is a really weird... She's not dumb. That's the weird thing. She's not an idiot by any stretch of the means. But she's also very hot-headed. She is very just not taking crap from anyone. Even Captain, she's willing to abuse just because she's a brat is what she is. She's right. Again, not dumb, but she seems to think she can just get away with most things. She was abusing Shinji and even Urahara when they were captains. I don't understand why they allowed her to ultimately Shinji was able to, put her in her place when he had to. It's just, as a captain and as an adult, he tried not to very much engage with her on that ground, on that level. Try not to stoop to that level. But, and Urahara was very much in the same vein. He didn't want to, try to humiliate her, if he would. And I'm just going to adjust the size of this thing real quick, so we can get more of it in the frame. So, her Zanpakuto, Kubikiri Orochi, it's very, just from looking at it, you can tell it's very much in line with that kind of personality. It doesn't look like much more than a melee weapon, but every Zanpakuto does in fact have an ability. Even if it's a very basic ability, like again, Gisaburi Maraicho's Bankai, it's a flail, or I can't remember. No, it's a mace. It's a chain mace to be precise. So while it's not the most elegant weapon in the world, it still has an ability for long range and all that. It can still do things. Ikaku's. It's a it starts off as a staff, but it can turn into a 3-section staff. That is an ability. A very basic ability, but an ability nonetheless. Every Zanpakuto has some sort of ability. It's not just decorative in terms of the appearance. There is something that goes along with that ability. So the question we're trying to figure out here is, what is this thing's ability? And then it's Shikai, and then by extension, what is its Bankai? And we can at least note a little bit by the design, the name, the release command, and then by extension, her personality. So Kubikiri Orochi translates, roughly speaking, into beheading serpent or head slicing serpent, depending on the translation. Its release command is chopped cleanly, and it becomes essentially a very serrated cleaver. Now, when I first tried to remember what it looked like, I thought it was a bit more squared, like the blades almost looked like just like a rectangle, but it is curved. Like the blade is curved. It looks almost it looks almost wavy to some degree. My guess, though, is it's actually similar in design and concept to Renji Zabimaru, which is, I believe, where it translates into something, snake fang or something along those lines. And if you remember Zabimaru, it looks very much like a snake's jawbone. Looks like you got the fang and then you get the smaller rows of teeth. I think it's something similar in that sense because it does look similar to rows of teeth in many ways. So what exactly would this ability be? Well, there's two ways to look at this. A, if it's a Kido-based Zanpakuto, and B, if it's a melee-based Zanpakuto. And either way, I think both the name and the release command very much kind of indicate what type of ability it has, just not the form the ability takes. And I think the type of ability it has is it's a cutting type Zanpakuto. Like, it's a Zanpakuto that's designed to cut in a specific way. Hence the name beheading or head slicing serpent, and the release command being chopped cleanly. You don't have two things that kind of mean the same thing in one way, or in two different ways, and then have have ability that creates flowers for some reason, which is actually a completely different Zanpakuto ability that does exist in the anime. But but those don't go together. So that tells me it's very much a melee based in terms of what it does. Zanpakuto, it cuts pretty well. Probably not to the same extent as like a Kapachi's does, which pretty much obliterates anything it cut. It can just cut through anything. No, this thing must cut in a very certain specific way. And now let's look at it from the standpoint of if it's a melee type Zanpakuto. If it's a Zanpakuto, it doesn't have a Kido based ability, so it doesn't use energy or anything like that, but it has an ability that enhances its cutting. What exactly would that ability be? And looking at this, I think it would be something similar to Renji's, but not in the same way. Renji's obviously is a whip blade that can, let's get Renji back up there real quick, actually. That extends, and then if it pulls back, it can cut even more. I think just based on the design of this thing, for some reason, I don't know why, I get a bit of a chainsaw vibe out of it. I feel like, now, the thing that does kind of go against the idea of this being a melee type Zanpakuto is in the fight with Holly-Belle. She and Lisa were fighting, and they had both reached their Shikai at that point. They were fighting her roughly on board, like they were going toe to toe with her. Now, the Holly-Belle wasn't necessarily losing the fight, but she also wasn't winning. They were relatively even. If it was a melee type Zanpakuto, there would be no reason why she didn't activate her Zanpakuto's ability. It would have made sense, quite frankly. But again, maybe she just didn't have the time because she was working in sync with Lisa and all that. So maybe she just didn't get around to it. If it is a melee type, the way ability I kind of see is if it makes contact, it just go the blade part itself, not the base, not the black grayish part, but the actual blade itself, the teeth of it, if you will, start kind of just going back and forth at insanely high speeds like a chainsaw would. Or not necessarily designed as a chainsaw, which is, as it says, a chain. It's a looping blade, if you will. But, just back and forth, just like a power cut, like an electric chainsaw, if you will. Just back and forth with the blade. To, increase friction, which would be a very simplistic but pretty nasty ability if you're in a close range fight. Makes her useless against Kido users, mind you. Anyone who's using Kido, you just can't do anything against. But still, not a bad ability overall, which then would ask the question, what would the Bankai be like? And I think actually the cool way the Bankai could work is if the blade turns into more of like a whip, but it's still, mind you, it's similar to Renji's, but not quite. Where it elongates into a very large whip blade. Again, not looking exactly like Renji's. Probably just looking more like a blade. It just has the properties of a whip. It just extend this thing out much longer, maybe like 100 feet or so, or a couple dozen feet. It still looks the same, but it has the properties of a whip. And the blade itself then can still do what it does, just on a much grander scale. Which, again, it's kind of like Renji's Shikai, but Renji's Shikai is on a chainsaw effect. Renji's Shikai is very much a whip blade. Hers Bankai would essentially be that, but add on a chainsaw effect with the blade itself, making it, and maybe you can wrap around and twirl around her body when it's not in attack mode. I think that actually be a pretty cool idea for a Zanpakuto. A whip chainsaw? That would be pretty dope, actually, I think. But that's assuming it's a melee type Zanpakuto. If we're going with the idea that it's a Kido type Zanpakuto, which would actually lend more credence to why neither her nor Lisa were using their Zanpakuto's actual abilities during their fight, because it's a Kido type Zanpakuto that has a specific type of ability that wasn't going to aid them in that fight per se, or they just couldn't get around to activating the ability. If it were the Kido type Zanpakuto that deals with cutting, what would be the likely outcome of that? Well, I think what we could see here is something to do with the serratedness itself. Perhaps it channels reishi within the not the blades, but the spaces between the blades, and that maybe enhances the cutting. Maybe it's something similar to Kensei's, where when it cuts, it kind of it does like a mild explosion or something like that. Something where the reishi itself enhances the cutting of the blade. Now, again, what that actual something could be, that's really up for interpretation. I've been kind of trying to think on that even long before I even did the video, and I'm still thinking on it now. And I am drawing not many options of what that alternate kind of blade could, or what that alternate type of cutting could be. Because if it were like made just another blade, there'd be no real point to this, like the actual design of the sword per se. But maybe it extends the actual blades themselves out with reishi. Maybe the reishi just extends off the teeth of the blade. I don't know if that would be a really effective weapon per se, but who knows? And if that's a Bankai, then what the hell would the Bankai be? Maybe it takes the form similar to something like Renji Zabimaru's original Bankai, or the false Bankai, as it turns out, of Hihio Zabimaru, where it does take the form of some sort of large serpentine creature that has a similar ability to Zabimaru, except it's not so much a giant whip snake with an energy blast, so much as it's a maybe it's like a giant melee snake that has like a supreme bite force or something like that. I'm spitballing more on the Bankai for the Kido, because the Kido style of this Zanpakuto would be very odd to figure out if it is a Kido type. Her personality suggests it is more of a melee type, but it could very well be a Kido type because she's not dumb. Most of the time when you see melee type, strictly melee type with no Kido abilities for Zanpakuto users, and there aren't that many when you really look at them. They're usually either very brash, not the brightest, or very straightforward individuals. Again, Ikaku is a very straightforward individual who just likes physical combat. Kenpachi, very much the same thing. Mauricio, he's not a very bright guy. He's a very dim-witted dude, and he's very blunt. Renji, he's a bit more of an exception in that role because his Zanpakuto does have one Kido ability within both its Shikai and its Bankai, but ultimately he's a melee type fighter. Ichigo is mostly a melee type fighter, but he does have one Kido-esque ability, but mostly a melee type fighter. So it's one of those things that and we haven't even gotten to Tetsuzayamon yet. Oh my god, that's going to be a nightmare one to do. I'm both looking forward to it and a little scared to do that one, if I'm going to be honest. Like, oh god, how am I going to figure that one out? Because I at least know the name of this. We don't know the name of his by damn. But we've seen it multiple times. That's the weird thing. We've seen it several times as Zanpakuto. But we know he must have a Bankai if he became a captain. So not only do we not know the name of the Zanpakuto, we don't even know what it does, so we don't even know what the Bankai could be. God, it's going to be interesting to do that video. But yeah, I mean, again, that's more or less the best I could guess on her Zanpakuto's ability. Specifically on the Kido side of it. The melee side of it, I can see this being more of a melee type than a Kido type. And again, just the design-wise, I get the vibe of and the name, everything along those lines, implying that it's something that cuts in a specific way. I like the idea in the Shikai that it's a chainsaw type melee weapon. And then in the Bankai, it turns into like a chainsaw whip. That, like a super large chainsaw whip. Maybe it gets a little wider, it gets really long, but it still has the chainsaw effect on the blade. I like that idea. But ultimately, what do you think Hiyyori's Bankai is, or Shikai Zanpakuto's ability is? Put in the comments below, let me know. But thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, subscribe. As always, if you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know, we'll do a review of it at some point. And ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Super Magic, what if, anything to do in the channel. Put that in the comments below, let me know. I'll get to do a video of that at some point. And hit that bell if you want notifications. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.